Welcome to the Steve Stine Guitar Podcast, brought to you by GuitarZoom.com. If you want to improve your guitar playing, keep listening. If you want to improve even faster, go to GuitarZoom.com, where you'll find all of Steve's premium courses, masterclasses, and memberships that'll help you quickly and easily improve your playing. Now here's your host, Steve Stine.
All right, so in this lesson, what we're going to be doing is looking at two different chords. We're going to look at E minor, and we're going to look at D major, and we're going to talk about some different ways of approaching being able to play these chords, different styles of chords across the fretboard, and also some different things that you can do to incorporate some simple soloing around those as well. Some different things that I tend to see when I'm playing. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to start building this with a dry guitar tone here, just a little bit of distortion. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the E minor, and let's just think, how many different places on the guitar do we know how to play an E minor chord? Well, you probably know the open position. And maybe you know like the 5th string bar chord. And of course the open chord would be a 6th string bar chord up at the 12th fret, right? So that's some really great places to begin. But let's fill in the gaps here with some other ideas, some different things that I like to see when I'm playing. And this could apply to any minor chord. We're just looking at E minor in this situation. So if I was to take this E minor right here, the first thing that I do is I visualize from these two notes another chord shape for E minor where I'm going to bar over all the bottom 5 strings here. And I'm going to add on my ring finger on the 3rd string 4th fret and my pinky on the 2nd string 5th fret. Now if I was just to strum from 0 of the 6th string to the 2nd string, it's going to sound like a glorified power chord. Now, if I wasn't in E, if I was in a different key, I would leave this string off, and I could strum all of this because I'm barring it. Okay, so that's fine. It's a fine sound, but what we want to do is we want to add some color into this. So what I like to do is if I was to strum all the way through this, and I'm barring across the 1st string as well, what I wind up doing is adding in the note F sharp. Okay? So that F sharp sounds like the 9th. And what it does is it resolves quite nicely up to the 3rd right there. Okay? So if I add my middle finger on right here, I wind up getting the sound of the minor 3rd of that chord. See? Now, I don't have to play that whole chord shape. I might just play a couple of strings. The point is that you start visualizing these things and you see them and you hear them. It's a really nice sound. But if I do this, that note right there, that F sharp, is kind of fresh to the ear. And it sounds really nice. Now, if I add a little bit of delay and reverb back into this. See how now, because of that little bed of effects that I have, it gives me space to just relax a little bit, and I don't have to worry about playing so much. I don't have to fill so much space. I can just enjoy that sound. Okay? So that's a nice place to start. And again, you could do this over any bar chord. If you were sitting on a G minor, for instance, again, where these 2 fingers are, that's my cue right there. So it's sitting right there. Now, if I take that first finger and move up, it becomes the minor chord. But if I leave it back here, then I've got that That ninth I'm adding in right there. You see? Okay? Makes it sound like a sus chord, if you're familiar with what sus chords are. So it's a really nice sound. Now let's keep going across the fretboard. So we've got E minor. And of course, there's lots of different things we can do to this E minor to make it sound a little more colorful too. There's lots of cool things. But so what we've done is we've added in this. Okay? Well, the next step for me is that I see I've got an E sitting right here. So I can start building off of that. And you might have seen this before. This is a pretty typical arpeggio that guitar players learn. Okay, so I'm playing 7, 5, 4, 5, 3, and then 7. But again, I'm thinking of it less about just being an arpeggio kind of off on an island on its own and how I can use that as a chordal structure. So I can already see if I look up to the top of this thing, I've got this 4, 5, 3. Well, that is that chord that we just talked about over here, but it's overlapping, right? So if we keep going toward the ceiling, I got this 5 and this 7 sitting right here. So I could play just this 7 and 5, or this 5 and 4, or maybe this 5, 4, and this 5. You see, any of those things are legitimate to play as a little fragment in your playing. You see? So if you think about it, now if I add that back in, I'll add a little delay and reverb. See how cool that sounds? I'm visualizing those notes and then playing the scale that surrounds it. But kind of the trick to the whole thing is I need to play enough of that chordal structure within the context of my of my solo to give it a chordal sound. If I just do this, it might sound really nice, but you can't really hear the chord. But if I go, you can really hear that chord sticking out there. You see, it's got a really nice sound to it. Okay, so let's keep going here. We're going to move up. Now, the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to head up to our 5th string E minor, which is sitting right here. You probably know that one. Okay, but let's make it a little more interesting. Maybe what we'll do is we'll take the pinky off. We'll make it an E minor 7 sound, right? Or maybe what we'll do is we'll take that chord and we'll think about adding in the 6th of this E minor, which sounds quite nice. So if we do the minor 6 here, which is that note right there. So again, if I add a little... See how dark that sounds? See, it sounds really nice, doesn't it? So there's my C up there. So if I went here and added in up there, or maybe I skip over a string. I play the root, which is the E, and there's my C right there. Play those together, right? Or maybe I play the 5th along with that. Sounds pretty dark, right? Where if I play the 7th, it tends to sound a bit more bluesy maybe. But if I add that 6th, it's got a really nice sound to it. So I just have to think about finding the B, right? And then thinking, well, if I've got my B, so I have G, A, B, there it is right there. Okay, so that's another place we can go. Okay, let's keep going. So if we move up again from here, okay, we're going to move up. Now it's going to have more of a power chord sound at this point, right? So we've got 9, 9, 12, 12. But let's try and do something a little more interesting with this. So right there, what I'm doing is I'm adding in this note right here, which is the A, over the sound of that E. Okay, kind of cool. Another thing I could do would be to play 9, 9, 12, and then 10. And right there, I'm adding in the note D, which is that 7th again. And then that'll lead us back up again into our E minor sitting up here. So it makes for really nice little comps that you can do with your chord. Maybe you're thinking about doing something, again, if I can visualize my chord and my scale at the same time. It's over in E minor, so it's going to sound quite dark right now. And notice how I'm putting E in the bass each time, right? So you don't really have to worry so much about having to play in time at this point. You can just kind of explore the sounds, but instead of going, with your scale, think less about just playing that scale and more about trying to play something that's based off the chord. Right? So there. So I know right here, I've got my root and my minor third, which makes the sound of that E minor right there. But if I drop down or go up above that, okay, so again, right there, there's my G, but I'm dropping down to my F sharp like I did down there, or moving up to my A. You can get some really nice sounds around that chord, or around that note. And you can still hear the tonality of that E happening. So what I did was I just kind of made something where I'm moving around. Right? And it still has the sound of that chord happening. See that? So I can use the fragments of these chords Isn't that cool? So I'm going from 5 to 7 to 9 and 10 there. See how cool that sounds right over that E. And then of course I just love this sound. And it can always resolve, but you don't have to resolve it. So that's some ideas that we can explore with just the E minor, just looking for some sounds, again, to break you out of always thinking about playing. Not that that doesn't sound cool in its own way, but right now what we're doing is we're really trying to focus more on making a connection to the E minor chord itself, okay? So really thinking about the sounds So I'm always pushing myself to something that it might move away from the chord, but then it comes right back. So there's something, and if that's moving, something else is trying to make a connection. You see? So as long as I've got something else there that's kind of making that connection. Otherwise, if I just start going, it might sound amazing. But what I really want to try and focus on is still kind of staying consistent with making a connection to that chord. Okay? Now when the D chord comes up,
if you're enjoying this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, go to GuitarZoom.com and consider becoming a premium member. There are 3 memberships to choose from. VIP, which gives you instant access to a library of short but powerful courses as well as new bite-sized lessons each month. There's also Play Songs that gives you step-by-step lessons so you can learn to play your favorite songs fast. And finally, there's Masterclass, university-level training on everything from soloing to music theory, from blues to home recording. For more info about these memberships and all the premium courses available to you, go to GuitarZoom.com. Now back to the podcast.
Now the D is a major chord, right? So I'm seeing D major. Again, I've got D right there, which you probably know. I've got a D 5th string bar chord, which sounds wonderful. 6th string bar chord sitting up here. So those are kind of maybe my outer points to connect to. So what I'm going to do is take this D chord, and of course I know I can make that into a sus2 by taking my middle finger off, which already is going to have a nice kind of sound to it, especially with this delay and reverb that I've got. And again, we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Right? Or the sus4 right there sounds really nice too. Okay. And then we've got D sitting right here. So now what I'm doing is playing 5, 4, 2, 3, 2. Okay. But I also want to be aware of some things here, like I could make my sus chord, if I think about my D, right? Because I'm adding in the G right there. So it's like a sus4. So that sounds kind of neat. Again, I'm skipping some strings in between, but you can hear how I'm still kind of maintaining the sound of that chord. Okay, move up to this D. Okay, we're right up here. Of course, we've got our D sus2. We've got our D sus4. Okay, but the 6th also sounds really nice up here. So if I was to add in the note B over that D, sounds really nice. Okay. Okay, so that's a sus with that added B in there. Okay, keep going. Make my power chord right here where I'm playing. Move up to this D. Okay. And when I'm up here, I like to see the scale sitting there. I'm making a D as well. I've got 10, 9, 7, 7, and then I could do 7 or 10 on that string. But I love to add in that. See how that works? And then I could keep going up my D sitting here. And then the really important one is using this D all over again, 1 octave higher. So I've got D sitting here. So if I go up and do 12, 14, 15, and then either 12 for the sus or 14 for the D, or 15 for the sus4 for that matter. part of the trick to this whole thing is being able to visualize them across your guitar. So if you're in one position and you're playing something that you really like, maybe I'm up here and I've got D. See, now I've moved down into this position and I'm seeing the D chord sitting right here. And then I'm seeing the D chord sitting right here. So part of what you want to really spend some quality time is learning how to visualize those. And you can just use one chord to begin with. Now, as you get more comfortable with one chord, then you could try two chords and things like that. But don't worry about, the people worry so much about well, I need to know all the chords and I need to know them all equally. Maybe someday that's true. But right now, just start with a couple of chords. Just learn how to take your E minor and just learn how to make some cool sounds. It's a fourth and a fifth and a sixth right there. Sounds really nice, right? Whatever it might be. And you just kind of explore those sounds. So you think, okay, well, what do I got? Okay, well, here I've got this, right? And I can see my scale. Wherever it might be. Even if you move up into this area here, which is your minor pentatonic, you got to think, what can I do that's different, right? Well, we already talked about this note right here, which is the F sharp. We looked at that down here. The F sharp adds that ninth sound. So a lot of times what I'll do is take my pentatonic and at the very least I'll substitute, instead of playing G, I'll play that F sharp. There it is again. And it changes up the sound of that pentatonic. And it sounds kind of cool. And then when D comes up, well, so right there what I'm thinking about is I'm moving up into this D, into the sus, and then I'm going to move up into this D, right? Moving up here. And this D. So I'm seeing this D and this D sitting right there. And I'm playing the pentatonic inside there. Right? Moving up into this one. Now, if these two chords were being played together, like the little demonstration I had in the beginning, if I was going from E minor then what I'm doing is I'm thinking about at some point I've got to connect these two together, right? So if I've got and like that right there, that note is a nice note to try and connect to the E minor, right? Because it's part of the E minor there. So I could drop down to that, right? That's the F sharp, or excuse me, the B. And I'm thinking, okay, here comes the D chord, so I got to think, where can I go that would connect to that D? Right? Any of those notes. Any of those notes would be just fine. And even if I added in that sixth, any of those notes would have been a great place to target as that D is coming. So I have E minor, right here, I got to think, okay, well, here comes E minor. Right? Where could I go from there? Well, right now I'm on D. I know I could drop back to, or excuse me, E, but I could drop back to B, but maybe I'll drop back to that 7th. See if I like the sound of that, right? Then oftentimes I'll use little things like that too, where I'll use maybe an open E. There's lots of really cool ways that you can approach this. You just need to spend some time exploring it. Now, right now, all I'm doing is running a little bit of distortion. What I like to do is, right now, if I turn this off, my guitar tone's fairly clean. Okay, and I love that kind of sound. So then what I do is on top of that, I add just some sort of maybe a stomp box, just a little bit of distortion, just to kind of push me over the edge a little bit. Right? And then I'll usually go to maybe my single coil pickup in the center, kind of start there. But you can see when it's really dry like this, again, it's great if I'm playing funk or something. But if I'm trying to make something that sounds a bit more ethereal and mysterious, what I want to do is I want to add in some delay and reverb. So what I've got here, you'll hear just a little bit of delay going on there. Okay, not a lot. And then what I'm doing is adding in quite a bit of reverb. What I want you to notice is that it's quite large and it's quite long. Now, what I always try and do with my reverb is make sure that it's not louder than my actual signal. Now, in this case, I'm pushing it kind of to the limit, so I'm pushing it up about as high as I would ever have it. And in this particular case, it's kind of long too, right? There's quite a bit there, and then that delay just kind of blends in with it very nicely. Okay? And in this particular situation, I'm looking at not really playing fast. I'm really just trying to think about those chords. It sounds really nice. See that? So I might move from here. So I'm thinking about my D sitting up here, sitting right here, sitting right here. And then moving down. Same idea with my minor, except my minor, I'm really going to try and think about some of the darker sounds. Because they just sound so creepy. I just love that ninth, though. It's So right there. Just climbing up the scale is all I'm really doing there. Again, just take some time to get used to and explore a little bit. And again, that's why you're avoiding the parameters of setting a metronome and all that sort of thing. Just see what you can do with it. Next time on the Steve Stine Guitar Podcast. Okay, so in order to get comfortable with this idea, what I have to do is think about what I'm actually doing with my guitar pick, which is down, and then I'm doing up, down, up. And again, this is just called alternate picking. Basically, what you're trying to do is teach yourself how to just continually keep the pick moving, regardless of switching strings. So as I go down, up, okay, what happens is, the hardest part about this for most people is the transition from the second string to the first string. So when I go, let's just focus on that for now, okay? So I'm playing down, up. So the first thing, of course, I've got to synchronize my hands and my fingers, and all these other things need to happen too. Hey, Steve Stine here from GuitarZoom.com, and thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, can I ask you a favor? Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Your feedback means more to me than you'll ever know. And be sure to check out my YouTube channels where you'll find over 1,000 videos to help you with your guitar playing. Thanks again for listening. Stay positive, keep playing, and keep having fun.
If you'd like some help with your guitar playing but you're not sure how to get started, go to GuitarZoom.com and look for the Help Me Choose survey. By answering a few simple questions, you'll get Steve's personal recommendation of the perfect course for you. All this and more is available for you at GuitarZoom.com.